Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. My guest today on Better Than I Found It is former Alabama All-American golfer Bobby Wyatt. Now, it's not often you get a chance to interview a player who once shot 57 in a state junior championship. Yeah, that's right, you heard it, a 57, and whose 7-2-0 record in match play helped his team finish second, first in 3 consecutive NCAA championships. He represented the United States in the Arnold Palmer Cup and the Walker Cup in the same year and was a 3-time All-American at Alabama. But as his college coach, Jay Sewell, will tell you, he was as good a leader as he was a player. I caught up with Bobby as he was traveling to Justin Thomas's wedding, which was no doubt a great reunion of Bobby's former teammates. I know you'll enjoy hearing Bobby's perspectives on golf and on life. Enjoy. All right, Better Than I Found It listeners, let's give a big welcome to Bobby Wyatt, former Alabama Golf All-American, good friend of mine. And Bobby, it's just great to have you on today.
Coach, I'm glad to be here. I've listened to the podcast a few times. It's an honor.
Well, you know, I've had some Alabama guys on here. I had Coach Sewell on as about my probably third or fourth guest. And I don't know if you've listened to that episode, but that man is full of energy now. It's anytime.
Anytime, every day, all day.
You had it for 4 years every day. I only had it for 1 year. Now, the difference was literally the only thing that separated me and Jay Sewell for a year was a wall at the Jerry Pate Golf Center and I mean, it was like he was talking to me right there because there was so much energy through that wall. Unbelievable. He's a whole different story, but you got to experience it for 4 years. Wow, that's something.
Yeah, it really was something. He is a beauty, and very few people have had the impact on my life that he has. That kind of goes, but all of my coaches, you and I kind of had a brief period together of only a year as far as a coach-player relationship. But, you know, college golf it's unlike a lot of other sports. You get that really close relationship built with people, 5 people traveling, maybe 10 people on a team. So you really build those relationships, and I certainly feel that way about Coach Sewell and you.
Well, he's one of my dear friends, obviously. But, you know, we're going to talk a lot about your college golf experience. But before we do that, I want to ask about your lovely wife, Jean, and your daughter. You better have a golf club in her hands by now.
We're working on it. She turns 3 in December. So we actually just got a putter and a wedge cut down for her, and she loves it. Kind of walks around like it's her trophy. Walks around saying, "Daddy gave this to me." So that makes her feel good. I think she enjoys getting out there. Who knows if she'll like it or not. I hope maybe for her sanity she doesn't play.
Well, I have never had a daughter, but I would assume if you just took her to the golf course and she was having a good time and you just keep making golf a fun place to be, let her ride in the golf cart, maybe let her touch the steering wheel. Maybe she'll think golf's pretty cool, and one day you'll have a sort of a prodigy.
Yeah, that's kind of the game plan. It's certainly what my dad did with me growing up, and that's what we're sticking to so far. We go on golf cart rides and get snacks. That's what she thinks the golf course is.
Okay. Well, one day she'll be hitting golf balls and making birdies. So, but Jean doing fine too?
Yeah, Jean's doing great. I appreciate it.
That's awesome to hear. I told Pam that I was going to be doing this podcast with you.
Better half.
Yeah, way, way better. You know, I know that for a fact. Well, listen, you're on the road, headed to a pretty special occasion. Where are you headed today as we're recording this podcast?
I am. I'm on the way to Nashville, Tennessee for an old teammate's wedding.
Who is that? Which teammate?
Justin is actually taking the plunge. I never thought I'd see the day.
Justin Thomas getting married. Can you imagine? That's amazing. So that's going to be a big occasion. I'm sure a great Alabama golf reunion.
I hope so. It has been fun this stage of life, having reasons to get back together. Everybody's busy, does their own thing. Some people are still playing, some aren't. And so it's always nice to have a reason to get back together.
Well, that's great. Well, we may talk about that again, but congratulations to JT. That's really, really cool that he's going to get married. And obviously he's done a lot in the world of golf, but now he can do something, take a plunge in the family life. That's a pretty good deal for him. Well, let's talk about you, because today you're no longer playing professional golf. Tell me what you're doing right now, and then we'll kind of back up to a time when I met you way back when.
Yeah, I'm a financial advisor with Goldman Sachs in Atlanta. Love every part of it. My wife and I have been there for 4 years with our daughter in Atlanta, and it's been a treat. It's a wonderful firm, and have a lot to be grateful for.
That's great. So it's still leaving you time to play golf, I assume.
That's a little bit, not in the initial stages. I had a lot to learn, a pretty steep learning curve coming off the golf course, but certainly have been able to play a little bit more as of recently, which is fun. Still game's pretty spotty, but at least I'm getting out there a little more.
See, you're never going to convince me your game is spotty. That golf swing, my goodness gracious, could you hit a golf ball? You still putting it good too?
That's it comes and goes, as you saw in your year with me. Pretty spotty, pretty streaky. I have my moments.
I bet you do. I bet you do. Well, listen, I told JC, well, I was going to be doing this podcast interview with you today, and he was excited to hear that. But also, I asked him about some dirt on you. Was there anything really major? He didn't have any. In fact, I couldn't get over this. It was nothing but glowing praise for you. So I'm telling you, Bobby, you did a great job snowing that man. He thinks you're great.
He's not typically known to have a great poker face. I'm really impressed he was able to pull that off.
Well, I asked him when the first time he saw you was, and he said it was at the Alabama State Junior at Old Colony. So he said he thought you were about 11 years old. Would that have been about right?
That's right.
Okay. And his wife, Stephanie, was hired by the Alabama Golf Association to do the scoreboard that week. And after the first round, you had shot a 69 as an 11-year-old. Come on, that's crazy. And she said, "Hey, Jay, you got to recruit this kid." And of course, she doesn't realize you're 11. You don't recruit a kid when he's 11. And your score was the only one in red that day. But the next time that he saw you was 2 years later at the Alabama State Junior, and you were carrying a Kentucky Wildcat driver cover. What was that all about?
Yeah, we were a tight-knit family. My grandfather was a huge Kentucky fan, and I just loved him. He was larger than life guy to me, and he loved Kentucky. And so, we sit and watch Kentucky basketball games together whenever we spent time together. And so naturally, I was happy to wear a head cover when he gave it to me as a present.
Well, that's great. Well, all Stephanie told Jay was you need to work a little harder. If the kid doesn't have a big owl head cover on there right now, we're in trouble. So, but anyway, you kept on winning the state junior every year. I think you told me you won it 7 years in a row. That's like crazy. You won the overall age group 4 times. Tell me about the last time you played in it, because I think you were just about to head off to school, and you shot a pretty low number that week.
Yeah, I did. That was kind of a weird week. State junior was always a big deal to me. I felt like if I wanted to be one of the best players in the country, you had to be the best player in the state. And so I always made an effort to make sure that event was marked on a summer calendar. My parents were nice enough to take me around the country playing junior events, but I always wanted to make sure that I was there for that. And the last year was special. It was at my home course by a stroke of chance, the Country Club Mobile. So definitely somewhere I was comfortable. And I shot a 57 in the middle round, which I feel like has followed me around. Still get a lot of grief for that today. But yeah, it was just kind of one of those days where everything went in, and it was just kind of just special.
Well, I was in Oklahoma at Oklahoma State at the time, and I remember seeing that maybe on the internet or something. I don't remember where I saw it, and I thought 57, that can't be right. That's got to be a typo.
Well, I hope that it gave you a twinge of regret a little bit, because no matter what I did, junior, I could not get Mike McGraw of Oklahoma State to pay attention to me or recruit me at all. So,
well, there's regret. Trust me, there is regret, because you tagging along with you was a pretty outstanding junior player named Corey Whitsitt from Houston, who was the U.S. junior champion. I think Jay Sewell had that must have been one of the greatest recruiting classes in history. And you also had Trey Mullinex, who ended up being a great player and has won on the PGA Tour. So what a recruiting class. But I will say this, something you just said really hit home with me, and that is you wanted to win the Alabama State Junior. And I think that's where kids miss a lot and parents miss a lot is, okay, we're already one of the best players in the state. Let's go win an AJGA event or let's go out here. And I see kids scheduling just an open not an invitational, just an open AJGA event on the same week as the state junior. And I encourage them not to do that. You're creating your legend and your legacy in your state. Win the state junior. Talk about that a little more. That is really important to me.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I made a ton of those mistakes along the way. I played a lot of AJGAs, was definitely on the kind of global, kind of junior golf circuit. My parents were incredible about supporting that and how I love to go compete and try to play against the best people there were. But, I have to give my mom credit for that. She had a lot of respect for the Alabama Golf Association and the people that were involved. And that was something she just kind of drilled in me, like, Bobby, you're going to play in the state junior. And I did that at an early age. And as I was fortunate enough to have some success on a national level, she kind of drilled into me, you have to play in that. And then as I did it in a few years, I realized how important it was and how for me, it was like defending home turf, right? There were a lot of really, really good players in Alabama. And, I felt like I needed to play and try to win that event.
Well, thank you for that. I think it's important that you win your state junior. That's a traveling trophy they have that 25 years from now, some kid will win that and your name will be on that trophy. And it's like that to me is really, really important. But you mentioned some really good players in Alabama, and you lost that state junior one time to an old boy named Smiley Kaufman. Talk about that. And does he still give you grief about that?
Yeah, we don't talk about it that often, which is funny. We were 10 years old. I remember it exceptionally vividly. I had a 4-shot lead with 3 holes to go. And I bogeyed all of them. Smiley made a birdie somewhere in there. And maybe he parred because we had a 3-way playoff. Me, him, and a buddy of ours, Hogan Bond, who unfortunately passed away in a car accident when he was 16. Wonderful family. And so we always had a very friendly rivalry. And I think it was a 3-hole aggregate playoff, and Smiley ran away with it. So that kind of stings me to the day.
He's got that first place trophy in his trophy case.
He does.
Not, but you did win seven.
Country Club.
So where was that?
Gadsden Country Club.
Gadsden Country Club. Okay. All right. Well, you won it 7 times, and the last time you won it, you shot a 57. So I think that's pretty well cementing your legacy in the state of Alabama as far as junior golf is concerned. So that was great. And I did see you out on the recruiting trail. There's no doubt about it. But to my credit, or to defend myself here a little bit, you did commit fairly early. And so by the time I was watching you at junior tournaments, you were already wearing the crimson, So I don't know. Give me a little break there. Maybe. I don't think you wanted to come to Oklahoma State anyway. I don't think you did.
No, it probably wasn't a good fit for me. I just was ribbing you a little bit. I did commit early. I loved Coach Sewell, as we talked about a little earlier. And both my parents and my brother was already there. Both my parents attended and graduated. So it's just kind of in my blood. And I was really close to going to the University of Georgia. They have a wonderful program. Ultimately, Alabama was really on the upswing. It had a couple really good years, and I just really believed in what Coach Sewell was doing.
Well, I think Coach Sewell did a great job with you and Corey and Trey in the sense that he basically knew that class was going to change the fortunes of Alabama golf going forward. He could tell that was going to happen. It was not only just great players, but you guys, I don't know, you just had that synergy, and you guys all 3 of you lived together for 4 years, correct?
We did. We had a great bond, and to this day, they're 2 of my very best friends, and it really was a cool 4 years. We had a fun team that really liked one another. I think that's a big deal. But Corey wasn't a shoe-in. We had to work on him, as you well know. He was going to Oklahoma State. I somehow was able to pull that rug out from underneath him.
Well, and I don't hold that against you, because for one reason, I was able to coach both of you your senior year with Jay, so that was a thrill for me for sure. But yeah, I felt like I had him, and that's the crazy thing about recruiting. You just never know what turns the tide. You were a big draw for Corey. Coach Sewell was a big draw for Corey for sure. And then the fact that Coach Sewell said something to him I thought made a lot of sense, and that was, hey, you can go to Oklahoma State, be another one of their All-Americans for sure, or you can come here and help Bobby and Trey change the fortunes. 25 years from now, they're going to ask, when did Alabama golf become Alabama golf? And they'll point to this recruiting class. So I think Jay was pretty smart right there, and together you guys created quite a legacy. So,
well, I appreciate it. I don't know if all that's true, but they had a lot of momentum before we committed. They had won an SEC championship, had one of the top teams in the country, I guess 3 or 4 years before, with kind of the Matthew Swan, Michael Thompsons of the world. So I think that it started long before we got there, but it's nice to know that we had a small part in kind of contributing to the program.
Oh, you guys definitely did. Well, so let me talk about before I got to Alabama, because my year at Alabama was 2013-14, which was your senior year. But right before that, you and Corey and Justin Thomas, so the three of you, competed for the U.S. Palmer Cup team. And your coach just happened to be Jay Sewell. That had to be quite an experience to have your college coach coaching the three of you on the Palmer Cup team.
It was really neat. Wilmington Country Club was where it was, one of my favorite courses, and my understanding is they redid it. I think the BMW was there last year, totally different looking golf course. It's kind of an old school dogleg, bunkers in the corner of the dog legs type of place, northeast screens. And so it was just a really fun week. We got to laugh, and they weren't used to Coach Sewell's energy, or his Sewellism, as we call him. And so we got to sit in the back of the room and laugh while they all, tried to keep up. So that was a fun week.
Yeah, there's just no way, unless you experience it, that you really can understand what it is, and it's genuine. That's the thing that I love about Jay Sewell, is it's genuine. It's just who he is. He's not ashamed of it. He told me, he says, Coach, get ready, because I'm probably going to cry a few times in team meetings this year. And he did. There's no question. He got
no doubt about that. He's not afraid to show his emotion. And, I think he's beloved in the game. I think there are the few people that maybe don't get jive with Coach Sewell, just can't believe that kind of high energy and that can be really authentic. And those people who know him well know that it is 100% genuine, and that's who he is to a core.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I agree with that. I got to experience it for a year. And so you guys played that Palmer Cup in June, literally a week or so after you won the national championship in Atlanta, not far from where you live now. To talk about that experience, because that came on the heels of two very disappointing NCAA championships. One at Karsten Creek, where you guys had one of the best teams in the country and didn't play well in the last round of stroke play. And then the other was obviously at Riviera. So you had two disappointing ones, but Jay always told me those two disappointments kind of led to winning the championship. Go ahead. Talk to me about that time.
Yeah, I think they definitely did. I think they were the majority of the reason we were able to win too. Anyway, I'm hopeful. I think we probably could have busted through and won one, but I think the sting of losing in the finals in 2012 really is something that stuck with us. And golf's a long season. You play a fall, you get a break, and then you play a spring, and so you really need that kind of inner motivation, and that to be able to focus on something even in the fall, knowing that you have a long season ahead of you. And that just gave us that kind of fuel, if you will. Karsten Creek, we shot 316. I'll never forget that. And looking back, that team was exceptionally talented. Weird year. One of our guys had mono and just wasn't meant to be. And so we had a couple of failures. And I think that really what drove us to, and match play is kind of a fickle beast. You have to learn how to play in that tournament. I think, kind of keep up with college golf now. You see some of the really good teams, like I'm thinking the Vanderbilts of the world, that they're in match play every year and they haven't been able to win yet. It's just really challenging. You have to kind of learn how to pace yourself, get through stroke play, get in the top 8. I'm not sure it does you any good to finish first. I think it kind of puts something on your back, or maybe changes your mentality a little bit. So I think you have to just experience in that event is huge. And plus kind of the motivation of knowing what it's like to come that close and not be able to win kind of really put us over the top.
Well, it did. And you guys won there at Crabapple in Atlanta. And then you played the Palmer Cup with Corey and JT and Coach Sewell as your coach a week or so later. And then right about that time, I got let go at Oklahoma State. And 45 minutes after I got let go, Jay Sewell was on the phone to me. He literally said, "Coach, I hope this doesn't upset you, but I would like you to come work with me here at Alabama." And I said yes immediately, not even knowing what I was saying. It was like, absolutely. I figured I needed some of what Jay Sewell had to Corey Whitsitt was thrilled because, now he would get to play for both of us, which was great. But there was a young man from Mobile, Alabama, was not very happy. I need to talk about that. Let's put that to rest right here and now.
Yeah, that was me for sure. I didn't know you well. And it was going to be my senior year. We had a great run of coaches. Coach Limbaugh was there for 2, and Coach Bradley before you, and just incredible people. And I kind of had that high bar in my mind. And while I knew that Coach McGraw from Oklahoma State had a ton of success and had led one of the perennial programs in the country for a long time, I'd had a couple run-ins from a distance with you. And it kind of formed an idea in my head. I'll never forget you sitting in Puerto Rico, crouching over, your finger pointing to the ground in Taylor Gooch's face after a round. It was kind of those things. And being a young, cocky 20-year-old, I probably thought more highly of my opinions than anyone else. And so I told Coach Sewell that I think it's a bad idea. I don't think he's a fit for what we do and how we like to run our program. I'm happy to say that I could not have been more wrong.
Well, I'm glad we said that because I was at a dark time. There's no question. And I know poor Taylor Gooch had to take the brunt of whatever I was feeling that day. I didn't know you were walking by. So, and I didn't even know that you had seen it. So let's fast forward, get past that. And somebody during a team meeting sometime during the year said, boy, he was mad. And Corey or somebody chimed in, was he Mike McGraw at the fountain at Puerto Rico mad? And I kind of chimed. I was like, okay, yeah, I must have been pretty mad. But that happens to coaches sometimes. You know that, right?
I do. And Coach Sewell has always had a unique way of expressing his emotions. I got many letters in my golf bag after rounds. He was too emotional, too angry to talk to me, and he put a letter in my bag, kind of saying, this is, borderline, this is unacceptable. You're better than this. Come on, like type thing. And that's how he coached. It was never confrontational. It's just challenging you to be your best self. And I do know it can be emotional. Golf's got to be the most difficult game to coach because everything's so out of your control. And you just want these kids to be the best they can be at the game, but also as men and how they behave themselves and represent your university and your program. And so I do understand that it's an emotional game to coach.
Well, and so Coach Sewell hires me. He has to talk you off a ledge. You're upset. And I think it was sometime in the middle of the summer. He and I were recruiting in Huntsville, Alabama. And I said, so tell me how everybody's playing. I haven't seen some scores lately. And and we talked about you. And he said, yeah, Bobby's not too sure about you right now. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, Coach, he doesn't think you're the right fit for this program. And I said, oh, surely he doesn't think that. So anyway, I went into it knowing, okay, this Bobby character, he probably isn't too sure about me, so I need to win him over somehow. And I remember one day, I don't know, Coach Sewell wasn't there, and maybe you were going to go out and hit some shots, and I went out and spent maybe 30 or 45 minutes with you on the range. And whatever I said that day kind of got you warmed up a little bit. You're like, this isn't that bad a guy. And so I noticed you had turned the corner when we had some kind of team meeting, and you gave me a little jab in the team meeting in front of everybody. And I thought, okay, that was kind of a good jab right there. And then you made it kind of your weekly team meeting jab at Coach McGraw, just a little kind of, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I definitely know what I'm talking about. And you have the best way ever to shut me up. And those who know me best know that if when I'm ribbing you or jabbing you, that probably is a sign of affection. And yeah, I certainly like to pick on you. I thought it was really, like, funny is probably the wrong word, but it was such an interesting dynamic, right? I was so impressed, and you did just totally change my opinion of you pretty much immediately. You had a totally different demeanor than I frankly was expecting. I didn't know you well. It was unfair of me to judge you early, but you have a great way of disarming people, and you always just say, "I love you, Bobby."
Every time I said I love you, Bobby, it shut you right up. You didn't know what to say.
I didn't know how to respond to that. And so
yeah.
it was always fun having that relationship, but it was funny having you as an assistant coach. That's not who you were at your core. You were and had led the most successful program in the country for so long. And for you to, be humble enough to take that position and approach it with the attitude and the excitement that you did, and not just a reboot, was what really impressed me immediately, and really kind of changed the course of our life.
Thank you for saying that, but I'm going to give Jay a little bit of credit for that. I mean, all of a sudden overnight, it was like I had this burst of energy, and Pam, my wife, felt just the same way. Stephanie treated her amazing. Heck, Jay recruited her more than he recruited me. He made sure Pam was happy to be in Tuscaloosa, but the energy level was so high with Jay, and I knew whatever he had to offer that year, I needed it. And I spent the year. I didn't know if I was going to be there a year or two or whatever, but I knew I needed to get my energy back for coaching. And so, yeah, you saw an excited kid. I was 53, but I kind of was acting like I was 25. I really thought I was a young guy again. And it didn't hurt that you guys had the best team in the country. You guys are pretty good. Took you three guys we talked about. I know JT left and turned professional, but you added Robbie Shelton, who that guy was pretty good. So
Robbie has been an excellent golfer since he was 8 years old. We grew up in the same hometown, 30 minutes away. And so I was very familiar with how talented he was. That is a great story. And it just goes to show that you and Coach were such a good dynamic pair. I think y'all probably looked at things differently for a long time. And I remember Robbie was struggling to qualify for the first tournament. And you knew he was a thoroughbred. He was just an incredible talent. And Coach Sewell was more of ease him in if he doesn't earn his way on the bus. And you say, Robbie, to go to the tournament, I'm leaving.
I told Jay Sewell, I've been here a month. If he's not on the bus, I quit. What are you talking about? And every time Robbie Prater hears that story, because he was the one who was right ahead of Robbie Shelton, Robbie says, well, come on, Coach, give me a break. But he understands the deal. He knows the deal.
Yeah.
But we had a great dynamic, and that qualifying was taking place while you and JT and Corey were at the Walker Cup, and Jay Sewell was up there watching you guys. And so I was going to finish qualifying, and Trey Mullinex was shooting about 30 under par, so he was going to win it. But Robbie was in the tank, and he wasn't playing very well. He shot a bogey-free 7 under the last round to make it, and then he won at Olympia Fields. So that was good coaching on my part. Jay Sewell almost destroyed the program.
And, probably you should have thanked Robbie. He got you off to a good start.
He did get me off to a good start. He's still playing well today. I'm not worried about that guy. So we go through that year. Obviously, I've won you over. And we're on our way to a great year. But I remember one other time where you thought you were pretty uncomfortable, only one time, and we were in Cabo, and I never get sick. I mean, never. And I was sick on this trip, and my cell phone wouldn't work. So we go to dinner the night before, and I don't even want to eat. And Jay said we're leaving at a certain time. And so that's all I knew. And you guys changed the time, and I didn't have a cell phone. And you came knocking on my door 30 minutes early. Remember the
That's
reaction I
right.
had?
I had totally forgotten that. and those who are listening know how may or may not know how punctual you are. You've probably never been late in your entire life.
Never.
Here you have a 20-year-old college kid knocking on your door telling you to hurry up.
I was like, are you kidding me? I've got 30 minutes. What are you talking about? But anyway, we go through that spring. We just played so well that spring, just had a great spring altogether. But I remember a lot about that national championship at Prairie Dunes. But one thing I definitely remember was we played Oklahoma State in the final. I mean, I can't imagine anything more. I don't know if it's not serendipitous, because I just think it was just a really strange day for me, because obviously I wanted you guys to win, but I also hurt for those Oklahoma State Cowboys. So let's talk about that day.
Yeah, that was special. We didn't have the allegiances that you did to Oklahoma State, which goes to show the type of man you are. I probably would have been vindictive and angry, but you certainly were not. And I know you genuinely did care for those players, just you recruited them and you loved them like they were your own kids, just like you treated us. But we didn't share that emotion. We were, we felt like we were going to bat for you, and we loved that it was in their backyard, in a course that they knew well, played a lot, and we were fortunate that you knew it well, and you were a huge, getting us prepared for what I would call a unique golf course.
Very unique.
And that week was probably unique for you in the fact that the wind didn't blow. I think you were used to a 25, 30 mile an hour breeze every day, and it just didn't happen.
I knew there'd be an Oklahoma State crowd, and there was probably 350 people there with the 5 groups. It was obviously a completely different Prairie Dunes than I'd ever seen. I'd really never seen it in anything but windy conditions. And I think that we were standing on the first tee, and Jay Sewell had you out first, like he did every single match of the previous national championships. And you were playing Taylor Gooch. And we were just waiting on that first tee, and I kept on thinking, man, it's the tension is thick here. This is something. And I said something like, boy, guys, I'm scared to death. I don't know about you, but and it kind of broke the tension. And then I think Taylor won the first hole. Maybe you bogeyed. And then you made a hole in one on number 2 that has never, ever been talked about. Let's talk. I heard your dad screaming up the hill. Tell me about that hole in one. It's not on video.
A 3-putt at the first, was immediately one down. And, he hit, I think, a pretty good shot in there. He obviously had the honor. And, I just made it. It was, that green is diabolical. But they had it in the front pin position that is probably the easiest on the hole, most accessible. And I think a foot on the back ledge, and it trickled all the way down and somehow found the cup, which was funny. And I think it was the first year that they were televising the event. And so that it wasn't on TV. They hadn't started the cameras yet. And so, that was a fun little thing. I mean, in those environments, you have to find a way to get right back into it. And the bottom line was, you're even standing on the third tee in the national championship match. But you're right. That environment, it was tense. And I think that was a big part of me being able to snap right back into golf, because it was tense. It was thick. Oklahoma State had a lot of fans. I think they busted them up there. We didn't, right? We had our family and a few friends, and that was it. And so we kind of embraced that. Even though we were defending champions, we felt like we were, the underdogs or had our backs against the wall, and we really liked that.
Well, and I knew I knew their players very well. Obviously, I knew you guys pretty well because I'd spent the year with you. But I also remember this, as well as I knew the golf course. I told Jay all year long, I'm not talking about Prairie Dunes until we get through the regional. And we played the regional at Auburn, which, is not exactly friendly territory, but we played very well. And I think Corey finished second. He played really nice in the tournament. We won the regional pretty good there. And once that was over, I couldn't stop talking about Prairie Dunes because you guys, you're going to love this. It's very unusual. It's got the great green complexes. It'll just be, anyway, I kind of went crazy, but there's a lesson to young coaches right there is I didn't want to think past the regional as good as you guys were. I didn't want you thinking about Prairie Dunes until it was actually a reality. So
yeah, you're right. And the regional is always the scariest term of the year. It's just not fun. College golf, the other events are fun. Regional is just not, especially when you're a top team and all the weight of the expectations and you have no business not making it to the tournament. There's a very real possibility that, something could happen and you don't make it. So it's a tense week. But back to Prairie Dune, I get asked, what your top 3 or 4 favorite golf course in the world are. That's definitely on my list still. I was able to go back a few years later when the web.com event was up the road in Wichita. And so we went, Corey and I actually got to go play again. And it's just a special place. Perry Maxwell is just as good as it gets.
Really good. And I was talking with Maverick McNeely a year or so ago, and he and I were talking about our favorite short par threes, and really number 2 is one of his favorites. It's definitely one of my favorites. And you made a hole in one on the thing. So
great hole.
Must be one of your favorites.
And then what is it? 16, 15?
15.
That comes out of the chute. You feel like you're looking down a bowling alley with a 7-iron in your hand, just the cottonwood trees. It's a really cool setting.
There was a young kid from Yukon, Oklahoma, who played for the University of Oklahoma, and we were playing the conference championship out there one year, and his name was Dax Johnson, really good player, but he couldn't get through the chute because he hit a big draw with every club. He could not get through the chute. He'll tell you that today. He's a really good player, but that hole was too tough.
It is narrow. I was a better player then. I could fade it when I wanted to. If I played it today, I would be in trouble. I've gone back to the natural golf shot. I turn about everything over.
You turn every driver, everything, wedge, everything.
I don't fight it anymore.
Okay, good for you. All right, before we leave that year, which was very special to me, I bypassed one of the most amazing accomplishments I've ever remembered, and that is at Sea Island in the SEC Championship. You played 54 holes without a bogey, and Robbie Shelton bogeyed the 54th hole, and Corey Whitsitt was bogey-free the entire final round. So you guys had 6 bogey-free rounds that week. That is unheard of out of 15 rounds, 6 bogey-free. But yours, you played the entire tournament without a bogey. 61 one round. Sea Island's not that easy.
Yeah, that was just a good week. I really struck the ball well. That's a unique course too, right? It's very visually intimidating, but I was a senior. I'd played there the 3 years prior, and the landing areas are actually generous. They just don't look it. And so I was comfortable there. And at that time had known that I was going to move there after school. So, it was just a comfortable environment for me. And for whatever reason, I think they had some troubles with the turf over the winter. I remember it being sandy, and therefore the greens were softer than they typically are. And so that really kind of, helped things out.
Well, regardless of how soft the greens were or the fact that it wasn't as difficult, and it didn't blow very hard that week, it kind of was average wind, it's still some pretty amazing golf. And I think LSU finished runner-up behind you guys, and it was quite a ways back. That was quite a victory there. So anyway, you and Corey and Trey all graduated at the same time. You live 4 years together. You go out and you're all turning pro. And so right now, only Trey is still playing professional golf. And I think that's an important thing to note because you were one of the best players literally in all of amateur golf and college golf. And Corey was the U.S. junior champion and a Walker Cupper and an All-American in golf in college as well. It's not a given that a guy is going to play a long professional career just because he was a great amateur and college player. So talk to me about how your pro golf experience was, and at what point did you decide, I think I'm not going to play anymore?
Yeah, it was a struggle for me, to say the least. I came out with high expectations, was fortunate enough to get a good bit of sponsor exemptions. My first summer didn't play well, and I just lost confidence. And, I think as any golfer knows, the 95% of the game is confidence and what's going on between your ears. And, I lost that early. I changed the identity of who I am, changed golf coaches a few times, tweaked my swing, probably paid attention to what other players were doing too much with good intentions. I was trying to get better and learn from people who had success, which I think is always a good thing to do, but you can't change the identity of who you are. And so I changed my golf swing too much, and just never really found my footing. And then next thing you know, I was really not enjoying it at all. I didn't enjoy the journey, right? Everything was about the destination, and I just got pretty unhappy trying to do it. And ultimately, when I lost I played on PGA Tour for a year, lost my card, and I was pretty sure I was done when I lost my card. But I gave it another year, played in Canada for a few events, and then I realized that you could hand me a PGA Tour card and I wouldn't want it. Mm-hmm. And that was ultimately when I decided, life's too short. I'm 26 years old, still have plenty of time to kind of reinvent myself, learn a new trade. I'd studied well in school. And so ultimately decided that, golf wasn't going to be my main focus of my life anymore. And so it's been a wonderful decision for me. It's worked out really well. I knew just some of the demands of the golf life weren't perfect for kind of what I wanted to be with my family. And so for me, that was kind of the way it shook out. But I've learned lessons that you can't really learn anywhere else, right? You learn the value of not only hard work, but also slowly building and getting better, taking one step at a time and still remaining who you are. And instead of kind of fetching for straws, which I certainly did when I was playing.
Well, I think it's healthy that you gave that perspective, because so many of the players that I've coached through the years, they get wrapped up in their identity being golf, and they forget there's a lot of other things about me that are pretty good. They're pretty special, and people respect me for those and whatever. So it's tough when it becomes the thing. It's like, that's who I am. It's not who you are at all. In fact, I'm going to read something that JC will sent me, if you don't mind. You probably get choked up. He said, he's very bright. He's a very kind young man. My favorite thing about Bob is he will defend the defenseless person. He always would come to the aid of someone else when somebody was talking about them. So it's like he thought, you were just a kind person. He really respected that. He didn't say that about your golf. The golf was obvious you were a great player. The thing that struck JC, was the person you were. And I think a lot of kids miss on that. And they think that we coaches think it's about their golf. And sometimes it's not that. We really think a lot about you as people. So what do you think about that, JC?
Yeah, that means the world to me to hear that, especially from Coach. I mean, I admire him so much. I had a wonderful family growing up, but he really was a second father to me. Those 4 years were such an instrumental part of your life, 18 to 22, right? I mean, you just develop so much during that time, and you're away from home, and all of a sudden you have all this independence. And, he created that structure for us and really kind of taught us how to be men. It's just still obviously way far from being perfect, but he got us closer. And that just means a lot coming from him. But, that's what college golf's all about to me. The team building those relationships, people helping each other to be better, not only golfers, but people. And, it's a time in people's lives where things can go awry. Certainly at a university like Alabama, where, people like to have a good time, for sure. And Coach Shield always allowed us to, grow and be independent and enjoy ourselves for sure, but gave us enough structure that we stayed in between the lines and grew as men. So, I love Coach Sewell. It means a lot.
That's great to hear. And I think that all young players out there that'll be listening to this, and I do have a lot of junior golfers that listen to this podcast, they need to understand that that's what they need to look for, is somebody who will see that part of them first before they see the golf. I don't think JC will, when he sees you or Justin Thomas or Corey or Michael Thompson or anybody walking toward him, he doesn't think what your stroke average was and how many times you made All-American. He thinks about who the man you are and the man you become, and he was part of that. So I just think that's fantastic.
I couldn't agree more with that. I think, for the vast majority of college coaches, they're really good people, and they really care about helping their kids and their players grow. And that's definitely somebody I know. As I have one daughter, and if she decides college golf and plays golf, like that's certainly who I would want her to go kind of, have someone as her father or mother figure for 4 years, right? And someone who really cares about her. Couldn't agree more with that.
That's awesome. Well, I think that it's great that you have the perspective. I think a lot of people need to hear that, especially parents and junior golfers. They need to hear that's what's really important. And you have no regrets. You're not playing professional golf now, but you've got a great life. I think it's wonderful. Tell me, are you going to play some competitive golf though going forward? Are you going to be able to?
Yeah, I really want to. Time has kind of gotten away from me with work, and like I said, we have our daughter, and that has certainly dominated in a good way our life and changed it. I've played in a few events, and definitely want to start playing in some more mid-am stuff. I miss competing, and so I really hope to, probably 4 or 5 events a year would be a great cadence for me here, and then maybe ramp it up down the road. Playing in the USGA 4-ball with my now brother-in-law, former teammate Lee Knox, which would be a really fun event, and hopefully be able to play in some other stuff. So, it's perspective is really a powerful thing, and I've certainly gained that with golf. And while I still get frustrated, and sometimes when you try to execute a shot that you know how to do and you now just no longer can do it, it can be trying. But it's a wonderful way to just get to know people and really enjoy yourself, and the community of friends. And as I sit here in Nashville to go to a wedding, the people that you meet along the way in golf, it's a really powerful connection. And, certainly, as you said, have no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah, those relationships are going to last a lifetime. So that's great. Well, and I just talked to Ian Davis, who was an Oklahoma State golfer a couple of weeks ago on this podcast, and he's done the same thing you do. He's gotten into the business world, but he's gone back to competing again. He won the Oklahoma State Amateur this year, played in the U.S. Mid-Am, and made it to the round of 16. So he's kind of in that same space you are, which is, okay, I love this life I'm living, but I could still compete and have fun with it. So maybe you'll do that as well.
Great. That's great. Yeah, I remember Ian. He's a great player.
Yeah. Well, listen, I got to tell you, this has been fun catching up with you. I haven't gotten to see you, but we do text occasionally, and occasionally when the Alabama team does well in football. And I know Tennessee was a rough week for you all. Man, that must have been rough. But I know you guys are.
Us Alabama people, we do not like orange. We don't like
really
Tennessee,
don't.
like Auburn, and that we talked about Oklahoma State. I didn't like Oklahoma State. There was too much orange there, so that Tennessee game hurt for sure.
Yeah, but I think Coach Saban will probably have him back ready to go again this week at LSU. So we'll see. But listen, tell all those guys hello for me at the wedding. Tell Justin congratulations and have a great time. And let's keep in touch. And thanks again for joining me today.
I will, for sure. It was awesome catching up. Sure do miss you.
You bet.
Good luck to y'all.